Are you looking for an internet radio station with a unique blend of talk radio and an eclectic musical flavor? Join Stardust Radio today at www.stardustradio.com, where talent and technology meet.
Have you always wanted to know the truth about things like UFOs, underground bases, Area 51, the Great Pyramid at Giza, and the Roswell incident of 1947? If so, look no further than Dennis Ballfazer's cutting-edge research. There's no woo-woo factor here, folks, just the facts as he researched them. Dennis's lectures are available on video and audio cassette. For more information and free access to Dennis's research, visit his website, www.truthseeker@roswell.com. That's truthseeker@roswell.com. The truth is here.
Climate change could affect our way of life. Reduce your greenhouse gas emissions and help control climate change. Visit www.vcr-mvr.ca. Brought to you by the Voluntary Challenge and Registry, Climate Change Central, and this radio station.
And now live from Riverside, Iowa, the future birthplace of Captain James T. Kirk of the USS Enterprise. Another episode of Wake Up USA, a UFO study. Your host this evening, Joe Montaldo.
Good evening and welcome to Wake Up USA, a UFO study, a Stardust Radio production, now being broadcasted live on SRN 1690, Riverside, Iowa. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Nice to see everybody this evening. I hope everybody can hear us okay tonight. We're going to have Larry Warren show. He's out of the UK. Guys, be nice. It's 1 o'clock in the morning where he lives. He got up just to come talk to y'all. Peter Robbins is with us. Peter, where are you at tonight?
Central New York State.
Upstate New York, huh? Central. I got quite a few friends up around that area. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're just going to kind of skip the news tonight because we have both of them on the line with us, and we're just going to kind of start from here. Now, I know most of y'all are familiar with Peter Robbins. He's been on the show before, and I'm sure most of y'all have read the book, Left at Eastgate. So it's one of the things we will be talking about tonight because the gentleman, Larry Warren, was actually there, and it had quite a bit to do with the book, huh, Larry?
Friend, good to talk to the USA again.
Well, I'll tell you what.
Have me on.
What I'm going to do, Larry, is I'm going to get you to tell the audience just a little bit about yourself, and then we'll start the interview from there, just to give them a feel about, who you are and, just kind of a basic feel. We don't want to give them too much detail too fast. They might overload on us. But,
right on.
Okay, Larry, just give them a little bit short bio about yourself, and then we'll start from there.
Well, I'm kind of old now, and I live in England, Liverpool, England, but I'm born in New York City. I'm a Yankee, and fly the flag every 4th of July just to piss the neighbors off over here, and proud to be an American, and co-authored Left at Eastgate with my fine friend that's on the radio there, and I was the whistleblower for what is now the Rendlesham Forest, the Bentwaters incidents, however they call it. I was in the United States Air Force, honorably discharged, and I did what I believe was the right thing to say these events happened, and I described what I saw, and they've been twisted and messed with for years to come, and I enjoy the fight because it's worth it.
Oh, it is worth it, and I have to agree with you.
That's about it. And I'm good looking still.
Oh, see, that's what I tell you.
I got most of my teeth, That's it.
Well, all the time, just because I'm on the radio, don't think I'm not sexy now. I'm still.
Hey, we try to convince ourselves.
They all know you look like George Clooney.
Well, that's what I tell them.
Peter, let me get you I know most everybody should be familiar with you, but just for the new listeners tonight, I'm going to get you to just tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we're going to get into I actually want to get into the Brentwater, but go ahead, Peter.
Yeah. Well, I am the co-author of Left at Eastgate along with Larry Warren. And when Larry and I really started to work on the book, I guess I had 10 or 12 years in the field as an investigative writer, continue with that as a specialty. Contribute articles regularly where I can, and right now, one of the main reasons that Larry and I are back together is in December, an updated and revised edition of Left at Eastgate came out in the United Kingdom and all over the United States, and it's available from Cosmo Books, available at any book-related website, or can be ordered from your local bookstore. And we're still very proud of the hard work we put into it and the results that book got.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, y'all will find links to it both on all of our websites, both on the Stardust Radio website and the Oddcar One website. It's also listed there, so you can just click right there, and it'll take you right where you need to be. You know, Larry, they always hand me a stack of research anytime we have a guest on the show. And I was reading through it, and before I get into the Brentwater case, I had read that you had a childhood experience, and I was kind of interested in it, if you don't mind talking about it.
No, I wrote about it as well, and I've had things happen, and, you know, back in the 60s, this wasn't... Well, I'm not from a family where the UFO thing was kind of prevalent or there was interest. It was me, you know, and I think it just came from some strange events I had in my childhood, and they were very strange. So Ben Waters obviously wasn't the first thing I had. I mean, were they UFO related? Well, there were some very strange things, and maybe more than my share, and that might short-circuit a few folks, but, you know, that's their problem, really. I live with it. And do I feel like a victim and this or that, or the abduction thing? I can't say I've ever experienced that, but I definitely have very strong memories of things that I wouldn't have been exposed to as a young kid through any media or through family or any of that kind of thing. And I think in New York City, where we have, Peter, 4 TV channels back then, and it just wasn't the thing. So I had memories of things going on, and some things in broad daylight that stay with me. I mean, certainly, don't know what it is, but, you know, it's something that's real. It must be if it impacts you this long. That's my opinion. To go into detail about it, I had numerous things since I was a kid, really. Very strange things. I don't think it's unique to me. I just think, you know, I'm more vocal about it. And then, of course, the Rendlesham thing happened, and I went through it, and I think, and I wasn't the only one with previous experiences, the witnesses involved. And even though it's, you know, 25 years ago, it was, I don't know, I think I was more predisposed to talk about it. It just was, it just triggered this necessity to say, wait a minute, here it is in full color. You know, the cover-up does exist. It is real. I went through it. It wasn't lighthouses and rabbits tracings on the ground and all the nonsense they still dig up in England where I live. And, you know, all it's boring, really, the nonsense that comes up with it, because it's so real, this subject. Anyone's experienced it, knows it's real. They know there's something to it. You get in probably some trouble when you try to say what it is, because I don't know what it is. But it's real. And I've had experiences, and I've been blessed or cursed to have them since I was young. And so far, so good. It's been quiet for the last few years. I don't know.
You know, Larry, after reading those notes, because I noticed that you had some family members with you, I'm not going to say who on air, but that's entirely up to you, but at present, at least one of them, and it got me to thinking about something. So I did a little homework on some of the people who were present at Brentwater. And I think it's interesting that more than likely 3 or 4 of y'all were probably contactees, or at least abductees. Maybe not contactees because he probably wasn't self-aware, but at least abductees. What I found interesting about it, and this is about the ratio for abductees, 1 out of every 4 or 5 of them, all of a sudden, after an experience, have this need, and I mean, maybe need's not the right word, maybe it's compulsion, but they have to talk about it. They have to.
I can remember. It's interesting. I know one in particular was Adrian Bustinza that had previous experiences, and I knew that directly from him, even in those days when we started to talk about the events in the aftermath of them. And there was, again, a very few people that literally went through them. We're talking all this stuff about rumor mills and everyone picking up stories on the base is an absolute myth. It was a couple days of, what the heck happened? Boom, gone. It was done. Unless you went through it. And then it was some quiet meetings that came about in maybe March of 81, where, we talked about different experiences. It was like a floodgates open. And, so that's, I'm with you on that one. I know one in particular. I wouldn't be surprised with others. I mean, there was an awful lot of guys that were involved in this in one way or another. There's a lot of strange stuff on that base and around that area. Go ahead, sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. I was just reading about, you had made mention of underground facilities, and I know quite a few, post-World War II, quite a few American and British facilities were supposed to be adding large underground facilities. Now, I've seen a couple of myself when I was in the service.
Sure.
People say, oh, we can't build those. I'm like, yeah, whatever, people. We got, and like the one in Tennessee isn't even classified. This thing's, 2 miles across, a half mile deep?
Right. Well, Peter came up with a lot, he, as the researcher with our book, he kind of tracked down a lot of guys and talked to people that were actually engineers that dealt with the facilities. And again, I was the first person to ever really talk about that. I was the first person to say that there were nuclear weapons on the bases at the time, thus constituting extreme defense significance to whatever happened, whether we're hallucinating or the events, as we say, happen. To quote Peter Hill Norton, Admiral of the Fleet of Great Britain. God rest his soul. And it turns out there are facilities down there. It turns out we had the largest backline of nuclear weapons. It turns out we were meddled with by the intelligence community. All these things that 20 years ago people, it sounded like it was pre-X-Files, so it just sounded like complete lunacy. But I guess with the book, what throws people as they read it is we were led to think happened in this underground facility. I still have a conscious memory of probably 20 minutes of it. But, of course, I explored that with Bud Hopkins, and he doesn't lead people and all this crap either. He literally, I was hypnotized, and I didn't believe he could be. Peter was present. This many years ago now, but I didn't want to remember it. I didn't, the session, and it came out to be a very terrestrial thing where I think they meddled with this a great deal. So if you were to talk about what really happened and then talked about, well, hey, even more happened, it just would have been put in a nut house back then. But, thanks to Bud, really. I mean, I read the transcripts of that. I have that session where I kind of revisited the underground end of it. And it isn't lunacy. I mean, it all makes sense to me at that point, other than, are they alien presence underground? Probably. Are they, who knows? But is it interacting with our government? I don't know. I don't know. But I think it was more CIA and NSA and stuff and narcotic, hypnotic meddling. And I was the first to say it. Now they're all coming out talking about their experiences with the same tactics. The other witnesses.
Other experiences, yeah. But that's something we always knew was going on, just nobody wanted to talk about it. You can't honestly think our government was letting ET abduct people without at least checking to see every once in a while what was going on. I did find that interesting. That's weird, too, because I just met Bud just recently at the Laughlin Conference, where Peter was at. And,
right. I've known Bud for, good 20 years, and Peter a lot longer, and he's a great guy, and he's gotten his stick and all that through the years, like anyone that kind of stands up for, what you believe in this world. And but I have a lot of respect, and I think I wouldn't have I got around this guy years ago when I first came out, and you're kind of like a circus monkey, and they had me, you got to be regressed, and I've read this book by Georgina Brunei, and I have to tell you, there's a lot of things in there that just aren't accurate, but I was hypnotized, someone had to hypnotize the people involved in it had paid him. They said, you got to be hypnotized. And I could hear the dog barking. I'm like, what am I supposed to remember? How does this work? And it didn't work. And I was very skeptical on the whole procedure. And I knew what Bud did, and I had talked to Bud for many years since the early 80s and knew Bud. And then I decided to explore this very uncomfortable thing. So I'll tell you, it did work because I trusted the guy. And what came out was not what I expected. It was anything but. I was quite surprised with it. So I have the highest respect for the guy in the world. I think he's a hero. There must be statues built of Bud one day. I don't know. He's a great guy, and his heart's in it. And I'd like to see any of these other monkeys out there that sling the mud, put as much effort into their beliefs and taking care of people like this cat does. because they don't. It's easier to just sling the mud, isn't it? And in this country, I live in England, and it's the worst for it. If someone's upset with that, fine. But it's a tabloid country, and it's a shame. It's a shame, you know. Any story on the subject with UFOs or on the Rendlesham case, which is right in their own backyard, they've got to stick a picture of E.T. and refer to a lighthouse theory some guy made years ago. And they still do it. I mean, we're a quarter century away from all that, and they just love doing that. So it's a sad world in those regards. I'm getting older with it, and you kind of accept it. And just laugh at them.
We had Nick Polk on last week and Paula Harris, and we actually talked about Rendlesham for a while on the show because we knew y'all were coming on this week.
Oh, right. How did that go?
Nick still works for the MOD, so when you ask him questions, sometimes he's kind of like, I'm an investigative reporter and an abduction investigator, so one of the things, well, I ask him, I'll say, I know you're not going to be able to answer this, Nick, because you still work for the MOD, but can you at least give us some reference material?
Well, you know, Nick's a great guy. I like Nick, and as a person, I've known him a long time. Pete does, and he's a personality, you know, and he has a very heavy position with the MOD here, Ministry of Defense, and I've never fully understood his role in all this, and it escapes me in some ways, but I think he believes the subject's valid. I disagree with his views that there was no cover-up on the British end of it, because there was, but he can't say otherwise. I'm not sure he knows otherwise. He wasn't even with the Ministry of Defense when this happened. So I don't think he can go further in what he does. He's a personality, and he's quite an entertaining guy. He's fun to hang out with.
Well, he definitely thinks there was something going on in Rendlesham. He's just not sure.
Oh, yeah. No, he's not wrong. He's not wrong. But, you know, for the fellas that went through it, you listen to the theories. A lot of us have different views. I've talked to witnesses that have never come out publicly to this day. And we're all affected by this in one way or another day to day for, you know, forever. I get some resentment because I kind of pointed the arrows at, you know, this guy was involved too, so the attention comes in their way. You got Charles Holt, who has a pension, who's like a tennis ball. He's back on one side, he's on the other side. It depends what show you catch him in. And that's his psychology, that's his position in the military, formal position. I can understand that. It gets a little boring, though. I'd like to see people just get a little more nerve and stand up. You know, they probably feel better about themselves, too. I don't lose sleep at night over a thing at all. Over anything we've written in our book, anything we've claimed, anything we've said. We've never. We wrote a nonfiction book, Left at Eastgate. We took 9.5 years of marriage on my part down the drain. A lot of things in Peter's life, and we did it. We accomplished it. We're very proud that we did it, and we've never had a cease and desist letter or been sued for putting someone in a position they were not in, or describing a scenario that did not happen. We're quite proud of that. That must say something.
Well, you know, I was talking with a bunch of the Odd Card members just recently, and I know a lot of them have read the book, because we had gotten into quite a heated little discussion about y'all the other night. And
who was this you were talking to, pal?
Huh? What was that?
Who was this you were talking to?
Oh, it's a group. I'm
just a bunch of folks, right on.
I'm for the International Community for Alien Research, and I
got you. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. I was speaking with them the other night, and the thing about it was, you know, there was involved in this conversation, and it was very interesting to see how it goes, because there's a very split reaction to Bentwater. A lot of people automatically just say, okay, yeah, it was E.T., no ifs, ands, and buts. That it was military, no ifs, ands, and buts.
The following is a special alert for all former U.S. military personnel and their families. The following is a special alert.
That military and special thing, because the military had to be aware something was going on. I mean, I can't see how they weren't, you know, there's something about that always has bothered me.
Looks like,
you know, when I was reading about when you were taken to that underground facility.
Right.
And it got me to thinking about a couple things because, I've heard that in so many scenarios. By the way, in case you didn't know, ICAR's investigated over 7,000 abduction cases. There's nobody...
John, good for you. Yeah, excellent. Because I know it's real. It's funny the positions people take with the event, and if they... I've always said the best way now at this point, because we're all, years are going by, and we're... the youngest guys involved are in their mid-40s, really, at this point, and the oldest are in their mid-60s. So, time steps on, but theories are one thing. But, I think if there could ever be a gathering at some point where the people that actually live this thing sat down, it would probably dust a few people. It really would. And everyone has opinions, but they're not always informed on the whole thing. I'm not saying that I know everything about it. I certainly don't. But I know what I experienced. I wrote about it. People can accept and reject it. That's their right. It's not a mission with me anymore. It's kind of like I've done it, and I want my son to be proud of me. His generation, this will all be viewed much different than it is now. But it's shameful in the States that this event, and I've been kicking its butt for years, since the early 80s, to get this, not me, the attention, the case, the attention it deserves, because it had a human toll. I don't care where this stuff came from. That's the government's problem. I care about the people it affected. We have people from the Bible Belt that thought it was the devil. We got a suicide at least after the fact. So it's not UFO stories, and unfortunately in this field it's all too often entertainment. I think at conferences for people, and you start feeling like the dancing monkey with the organ grinder. And I felt that way many years ago. Nowadays you do reach people, hopefully, and just get people to think. But, opinions are one thing. Talk to the people that lived it, and inform yourself. Read everything you can, accept and reject, and come to an intelligence conclusion. But I can assure you what it was. It was lighthouses, a military experiment, this and that. Someone else was there. It's just that simple. And the evidence actually would win in any court of law. That's a point that's never been disputed that Peter and I have made for years.
Yeah, and
we sound so smug and arrogant, but we do know it. We do know it.
It's what was that, Peter? Both Larry and I are very open-minded on the nature of what happened there, and if somebody could actually establish for us with real evidences in a uncontested kind of way that it was something other than we think it was, I don't think either one of us would lose any sleep over it. Neither of us have ever been married to an agenda here. However, for those in your audience who take the point of view that this was probably some psyops operation and the men involved on the third night, like Larry, were subjected to some kind of mind alteration and, holograms and all kinds of high-tech hardware, I'd like them to consider the following, and this is just kind of a random sample here. The exact site in the farmer's field called Capel Green, where the machine made its appearance on the third night, which Larry describes in unforgettable terms in our book, there is a discoloration in the soil, and I saw it the moment Larry pointed to it, the first time he had returned to it, and the first time I was there. This is more than 8 years after the incident. My first reaction was not, oh my God, look, it's a trace case. You can see the difference in the soil. My first reaction was, interesting coincidence, but this is farm country. It could have been a load of nitrate fertilizer that wasn't properly spread. It could actually be a play of light, and I'm seeing an illusion. Maybe lightning hit there 2 years ago. But the more we looked at it, we really saw that there was a difference. And I took samples and to cut to the chase over the next few years, and that you could see the impression in the soil. A year and a half later, I went back. We're now almost 10 years after the fact. I could see it very clearly in the color of the grass. The area where this thing had sat was kind of an oval, and it was bright green, and it was surrounded by grass that was all already yellow and going to hay. Well, when the laboratory did the analysis, and a highly regarded, extremely respected environmental research laboratory in Wareham, Massachusetts, conducted these tests appropriately, we found out several things, among which was the concentration of tiny little metallic particles in the affected area was more than 4 times that of the surrounding areas, suggesting to our analyst that whatever sat there had subjected the surrounding area to a very, very powerful electromagnetic effect. Number 2, when they did seed germination tests in the affected soil samples I had brought back and the control samples from around the field, and I sent back pounds of soil for investigation. Seeds would germinate in the affected soil, but they would always take longer, and they were mutated. The pH was blown from the soil. The regular farm soil became mud when you added some water. The affected soil, even though this was years after the fact, clumped up, either sank to the bottom or floated like dust on the top. And perhaps most intriguing of all was being so close to the water. We were only about 6 miles from the coast here. You would expect a certain amount of sand content in farm soil, and of course it was just what it was supposed to be, except that in the affected sample, the dispassionate laboratory term was that, the sand is in an interim form of glass. It had melted. They were not able to reproduce these results in their laboratory. The only reason I bring this up here is because while I respect the point of view, and it's true, men's minds were messed around with, there's no question about it. All kinds of special FX may have been used. There was definitely a desire to suggest certain things to affect their thinking on what they had really seen. But again, for anybody who feels this was simply a matter of holograms and, guys who had been somehow mind-altered, this does not melt sand. It does not mutate plants. It does not change the color of soil. And this was multiply witnessed. So as we move on, again, we are open to it, but my feeling is, this was other intelligences from other places there for whatever reasons they come here, and the Air Force and the NSA was treating it as a tremendous potential security problem, and God knows against the backdrop of what was going on in Poland at the time. We were very close to conflict as far as their pro-democracy movement being on the edge of smash by the Soviets. And at the same time, there was, as Larry mentioned, a very, very serious nuclear treaty violation at the time, and the lion's share of that ordinance was right under this twin base complex.
But, that in itself is just intrigues the hell out of me, because, that's a major treaty violation. That's one of those for the war. And I don't know. Sometimes I wonder what's going on with the U.S. and its allies. And
well, I'll tell you one thing, Joe, is that until Larry,
nothing good if you live in Europe.
Until Larry first talked about that violation and the fact that he had, among other things, in his basic training with the Air Force, specialty training and working around nuclear ordnance. He was posted on a base that supposedly was nuclear-free, but it was loaded with armament. And that ultimately it was none other than the former Chief of Staff of the Ministry of Defense, the late Lord Peter Hill Norton, who chased this down and authenticated it. And that's a man who was, in his time, the Chief of Staff of the Ministry of Defense, the full equivalent of, say, Colin Powell.
Well, he was the head of NATO on top of it at the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it was, the nuclear thing was, when I first went to Bentwaters, Rick Bernalino was another security police, and we were in the men's room at McGuire Air Force Base, and I said, so we got nukes over there or what? And I'll tell you what, the whole room went silent, this men's room, and I was young and stupid, but when we got over there, you remember, if you're old enough, they remember it here in England, definitely, was Greenham Common. You had the ban the bomb movement and the whole bit, and the women would handcuff themselves to the fence at Greenham Common, which was a base southern England, and that's where we allegedly had housed nuclear ordnance. And They camped out there. They were lunatics, frankly. It's a great honorable thing, but these were insane people, frankly, in my opinion, for years. And what must really upset them now when they hear that that was a diversion, the actual storage area for the tactical nuclear weapons, which are 1 megaton blast radius, 350,000 kilotons we kept, which I knew because of my clearance. I have no problem saying it because I only threw that card on the table once they kept saying these events were of no defense significance, and I had my passport suspended by my own government for speaking about sensitive defense issues in a public forum on foreign soil. So they kind of...
Hey, Larry, I got to stop you right there because we got to go to break. Ladies and gentlemen,
bills.
Wake Up USA, a UFO study, a Stardust Radio production, now being broadcasted live in SRN 1690, Riverside, Iowa. I'm your host, Joe Montaldo. I'm sitting and speaking with Larry Warren and Peter Robbins, and as soon as we return, we'll start taking some questions, so please stay tuned.
The following is a special alert for all former U.S. military personnel and their families. Our veterans are facing dramatic increases in health care costs and service reduction. Both the DoD and DVA are attempting to redefine and reduce benefits and services. Retired military families are targeted for huge cost increases in TRICARE coverage. VA services and facilities across the country are facing severe cutbacks, even closure. Our veterans are under attack. On April 25th, Operation Firing for Effect will hold a rally on the west lawn of the U.S. Capitol. If you oppose balancing the federal budget on the backs of our veterans, come and stand with us. Visit vetmarch2006.net.
This internet station sounds great on your computer, but wouldn't it be even better if you could take it with you wherever you go? Now you can. This station is proud to be affiliated with the Mobile Broadcast Network, brought to you exclusively by Access Voice. They make it possible for you to hear your favorite internet station anytime, anywhere, on your cell phone. To get connected, go to www.mymbn.com and listen to internet radio on the go.
Have you always wanted to know the truth about things like UFOs, underground bases, Area 51, the Great Pyramid at Giza, and the Roswell incident of 1947? If so, look no further than Dennis Ballfazer's cutting-edge research. There's no woo-woo factor here, folks, just the facts as he researched them. Dennis's lectures are available on video and audio cassette. For more information and free access to Dennis's research, visit his website, www.truthseeker@roswell.com. That's truthseeker@roswell.com. The truth is here.
Climate change could affect our way of life. Reduce your greenhouse gas emissions and help control climate change. Visit www.vcr-mvr.ca. Brought to you by the Voluntary Challenge and Registry, Climate Change Central, and this radio station.
SRN 1690 AM, Riverside, Iowa, and around the world on the Stardust Radio Network. www.stardustradio.com.
You're listening to the Stardust Radio Network, where talent and technology meet.
Good evening and welcome back to Wake Up USA, a UFO study, a Stardust Radio production. Now being broadcasted live on SRN 1690, Riverside, Iowa. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Y'all know I'm sitting and speaking with Larry Warren and Peter Robbins. Larry, I'm going to get them to tell you a little bit about your experience, and because you've already got a bunch of questions stacked up. Well, let me ask you this. Since we got you on tonight, We'll do it your way. Would you rather take the questions first and then come back to the Bentwater case, or do the Bentwater case and then take the questions?
It's your show, pal. Whatever you want to do.
I just want you to be comfortable because we're just here. We're just exchanging information. We're all kind of laid back and we enjoy ourselves. We like doing the show. And one of the things you're going to find out is most of our listening audience that are going to probably be asking you questions are fellow ufologists. More than likely they've done their homework.
Hey, listen, I'm with you. Whatever you want to do, man. I'm just sitting here in Liverpool, hearing the wind blowing garbage cans around. I'm up for anything.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, before we open it up for questions, I've read a couple of things about Bentwater which I found interesting, and then there was a particular description you were given of the craft. In your own words, because I really want to hear in your own words, basically the events leading up to seeing this craft and then what it looked like. Because I'm just curious, when I read it, that just kept sticking in the back of my head, and I guess when you say it, maybe that'll clear it up for me.
Okay, all right. That night, in particular on the third night, I was D-Flight security, and that's been established long ago. And I was taken off a post at the end of Bentwater's runway, which is manned during alert condition. And we were under an alert condition during that period for whatever reason. I've proven that with photographs, etc., whatever. We were under an alert. It wasn't just a fluke. And but I didn't know about the previous 2 nights of activity. I remember these were 3 nights of events. It's taken 25 years for people to kind of figure out it was 3 nights, not 1 or 2 or whatever. And on this 3rd night, I was picked up by Lieutenant Bruce England, who was ex-Army, I think he was, and Sergeant Adrian Bastinza, who was driving the pickup truck. It was an open truck. I deactivated my post. We had Motorola radios, M16 rifles, and I was told to get in the back of the vehicle. I got in this pickup truck with a few other fellas, one of which I trained with down in Texas. We took off for the motor pool. Got some light-alls. There was some problems with the lighting equipment. I've seen it written in books. This was on Woodbridge. It was not. It was on Bentwaters at this time where this happened, because that's where our motor pool was. And people like rewriting history, but they weren't there. Took off to the main gate of Bentwaters, and there were other vehicles present, some law enforcement police cars. LE, the difference in the military at that time, the security police are now called force protection, but in those days it was law enforcement police, which are like your cops on the community, on the base, and then there was us, which was more combatants, heavy arms, anti-terrorist trained, nuclear security, all that, and I was one of them. Secret clearance, the whole bag. So we took off toward RAF Woodbridge. Didn't know what was going on. Got to the end of the Woodbridge runway after about a 3.5-mile, 4-mile drive. I think Peter will agree that the trip seems to, between the bases, get so small because we've been going back to a place I couldn't wait to get the heck out of so much over the last 20-plus years that it's silly now, but like home. And but I was very unfamiliar with the terrain at that point. I just had some schooling on Woodbridge. I'd already been posted to my flight after 2 weeks of incoming training. Now, Charles Hall always says there's no way I would have been involved in all this because I was still in training. Well, Eddie Kavanasak, who was involved, I knew him, he was a friend of mine. He was involved on the first night of events. I didn't know he even went through anything. That's how silent this thing was. Ed said on that, Eddie had gotten there, he was in the flight in Texas just after me, the police academy. And he had just been on the base and just finished by a day his incoming training. So how was he involved? So Mr. Hall, talks a lot of beans a lot. God bless his soul. But at the end of the day, we got to the end of the Woodbridge flight line. There was a roadblock of sorts, very loose one, but law enforcement police car, some flares on the road, and there was a civilian car we pulled up next to. It was a white Ford Cortina. It's a very popular kind of car. I think the whole country drove them at that time in England. And there was a little girl asleep, and the security, the law enforcement cops said there was unexploded ordnance. They felt, and that's what they were investigating, and they wouldn't delay her. We went through it, turned into Rendlesham Forest. We turned left after Eastgate. I've literally had these moron debunkers or whatever they are out there pick that apart, the title of the book. That's the best they could do. It's not actually left at Eastgate. You wouldn't be there. We were told, where are we going? Lieutenant England asked the road guard. He said, turn left after Eastgate. So, sue me, I put the book as left at Eastgate. Made sense to me. And we turned left into the forest on Commission Trail, Forestry Commission, and went about a quarter mile, got to a parking area, circular area, got out, and we were disarmed. There was an armory vehicle with gun racks on the back. We couldn't have active weapons off the base, though there were some personnel on previous nights that did have sidearms. But they didn't know what they were encountering either. At this point, senior people on that base did know there was something really wrong, and these objects had returned. Clearly, I didn't know this still. I thought we were fighting in a training exercise, which would happen in Rendlesham Forest during the day. something about fires. We thought it was a fire exit. We just didn't know. We were kind of greenhorns. And we had to maintain radio silence. We broke up into groups of people. There were numerous people out in that forest. There were flashlights going through all the trees. You could see it. And there was a song by the Police at that time. It was very popular. It was Walking on the Moon. And I think of that song, whenever I think of that song, I think of not the event itself, but going through the forest to it. It just had that vibe, man. It just brings you right to that time. So we're walking along, and we would stop, we would go. We kept hearing October #1, and over the open channels, there were 4 channels, the security police band, and they were trying to reach the base CO. And as far as I know, that's Gordon Williams, who wasn't there or something, but he was, because I saw him. And so we moved forward through the trees for quite a bit, because we didn't follow the trails that maybe Peter would be familiar with now, because I don't think anyone is too familiar with the lay of the forest, really, at that point. We wouldn't have had a need to be. Off to my left, there was a point about 50 yards or so with red tape or some kind of a string that was bright orange, Big Jim flashlights, if you remember them, on the ground. And I do believe this is Charles Halt's site where they were seeing, where they were reporting an earlier site with indentations and markings, which would not have been the first night's incident, because they wouldn't have investigated that at the middle of the night 2 nights later. It just escapes logic. So something had happened there. And I do believe, personally, that's where Halt was. I never physically saw Halt out there. I know he was, because it's the same night.
Why did he see you?
Sorry?
It makes sense.
And, of course, he didn't see you either.
Well, it's not important, because there were so many people out there, but he wasn't the senior man on site and at all. I know I was with Robert Ball, and then he was my flight chief. I know the people I was with. Charles Halt I knew, but I didn't know he was there. But it makes sense to me. This is the site where they start reporting the beginning of our incident on Capel Green. And it is so obscured from his point of view from then on that God knows maybe one day he'll say what he knows, because he knows more than what he says. But beyond him, I can only deal with me. And I walked to, there was a slight rise in the giant oak tree. It was lit up. I could see in the distance a farmer's house. And in the middle of this field, a grass field, there was no snow on the ground. It was cold to probably the southern guys, but being from upstate New York, growing up there, it was pretty mild. It was in the 30s. And so you get a different perspective on how the weather was. To me, it wasn't that bad. When we have 17 below zero half the time in the winter. So we moved up. I got on the hill. There was a guy I knew that was having a problem near a tree, and he was being spoken to by the flight chief. We moved beyond that. There was a fence that had been, there was a board put on it, I believe, that we could step over, and they had knocked the original barbed wire fence down, which Peter it's still there, that what we literally knocked down. And walked over that, and in this field was a circular object. It was about 50 feet in diameter, roughly 30 to 50. It was part of the ground. It was translucent. It was greenish yellow. You could see the ground through it. So you wouldn't, I don't know what I thought. I mean, you wouldn't have think flying saucer, because it was just a fog, but it had definition to it. And off to the left of where I'm looking is a farmer's house. The upper light was on. There was a dog barking. Beyond that, just south of that, was the slight, and I mean the slightest of maybe flash from the Orford Lighthouse, because the night there was some clouds and things, but it was somewhat clear too. And so this little kind of occasional blink, which was just an illumination of cloud. It wasn't even the beam. You couldn't see the beam of that lighthouse. It's a myth. It's been there 100 freaking years, and no one ever reported UFOs doing this before and mistaking this darn lighthouse. So, absolutely the most insulting thing I've ever heard in my life, and most people are too chicken to ever say that to my face or any of the witnesses. And so that was doing its thing, as it had done for 100 years, I guess, because there was a little something, a little occasional brush of something on the clouds. But the issue was south of that, further down, out toward the North Sea, south of the Orford Key, was a red light that appeared. It looked like taillights on aircraft very quickly. It did an arc in over the field so quick as soon as we saw it, like a loop, a U-shape, stopped over this thing, this mist that had circular definition. It was amber color. It was the size of a basketball, approximately about 30 feet high, 20 feet, 30 feet in the air. And it dispersed. This happened so quick. But in this field at the same time, and I've said this for years, and it has been backed up by Captain Mike Verano, who flew this film, or brought the film to an aircraft with the guy that says he was never there, Gordon Williams, and didn't know a thing, but he knew about the film for some reason and drove it to the aircraft, an F-16, which are new aircraft then, and it went off to 8th Air Force. That was the next day. So that's on CNN 20 years ago. It's old news now. It happened. That film exists. But there were cameras in that field. There was a handheld shoulder-mounted camera, which could have been Base Public Affairs, I don't know, or some agency, and then there was a stationary one on a tripod, and there were still photographs being taken. Those were the only flashes, really, that you'd notice, not any lighthouse or anything. They were photographing this. And this thing dispersed in color, and it was very hard to describe, and it still is very, many years have passed, but there was extremely bright shards of light, lines of light that would fall down on this in this area, and something happened, and now there was this structured, distorting thing in its place, and it was triangular in shape, concave at points with extensions on it. No windows, landing gear, I couldn't see anything like that. Nothing landed. I wouldn't even, a spaceship, I've seen that quote in other people's books. I've never said a spaceship. I don't know where the hell it comes from. I just know it wasn't from Detroit, built there. And there were boxes, and it was very, very strange. And the more you looked at it, it would change on you. And it was very bright and white and dirty colored and with blue base and a kind of this red thing near the top. It's you have to understand movement at this point. You don't have to understand because there's no way you ever would, hearing this, but without seeing it, and then you still don't. But movement, as soon as you got near this area before this happened, was at half speed. Your arms felt heavier. You felt, it's funny now thinking, because I can remember that feeling. You did feel a bit out of, half a step out of your own self, not quite in control of your motor functions, maybe. And whatever people say, that could have been a result of shock. Well, I wasn't in shock here because I know what was about to happen. It was a very strange feeling that I still remember. And this object was there. It was dead silent in that forest. I believe on Charles Holt's tape, when they see a small red light, which came in years after I described this, that's the beginning of our event. They're describing it from almost 200 yards away in the forest, through the pine trees. I'm certain he's witnessed this part of it. Other people arrived on site. One was Gordon Williams. He was a wing commander. I know he was because he was his bodyguard when he changed, became a general and left the base. He gave us the incoming briefing when we got to the base. As a base commander, a wing commander, he would have needed to be involved in these events, not let someone else handle it, for God's sake. I mean, we're alleging, his officers are alleging there were unidentified objects near a nuclear base. You're not going to say, well, heck, I'm just going to enjoy the Christmas season and drink my, Remy Martin and kick back. I mean, you're going to get out there and check it out. So I find that argument pretty embarrassing, and I think most thinking people would, but that's his conscience. God bless him. He was there, and he was present and saw this object, three things. This light came away from it. We went into a covered wagon scenario where you isolate a nuclear device. I think that's all they could really do. People were dispersed. I have to tell you, some people ran away into the woods. The camera people were filming. Sergeant Bastinza said to me, I thought he said just like what happened to me in Alaska. He says later it was California. Sorry. I don't know about that, but I can remember that very clearly. And they had Geiger counter things going on, and I didn't know what they were then. And there was this object that broke away from it, the right side of the object from where I was standing. And within this bright light, it split into three, whether people like it or not. And inside these individual bluish gold lights were these ethereal-looking, ghosty, kind of your classic big-eyed little fellas there. But not like the movies do. I mean, this was almost, it wasn't a projection. It was definitely, these were acting independent of each other. And it was completely, I'd use some profanity here, but it was completely bleeped up. I mean, and it still is. And I stand by what I saw. Other people have verified now that this happened. It was very disturbing to a lot of people because, I mean, you are facing something totally conscious that isn't supposed to be, you know, at the end of the day. And you're facing this with numerous individuals, just like Holt's memorandum states. I have never forgotten it. I would, you could put a gun to my head and I wouldn't deny it. And it's just the way it went down. What it was, I don't know. But was it alive? Absolutely. And it was someone else. It was not human. It was no way was it human. No way was it an experiment. This was before the meddling took place. The meddling had nothing to do with these events. The meddling had to do with confusing the issues afterward. You know, we were highly trained observers. This was unlike probably many of these guys had ever experienced. There was nothing like it. And this is all filmed. I've never wavered from this stuff. I mean, I've heard all this, he changes his story and all this. Show me where. I've seen researchers and other writers change my story, but I wrote a book. That's it. That's the story. This thing went down, and other people have verified it. End of. Done. You work on your acceptance of it. I'm not saying you personally, but the listeners, the debunkers, the average human being, and then figure out where we're going in the world. Because I've been dealing with it for 25 years. Welcome aboard. But it happened. And there's guys that suffered with this. And it's not so much because the stuff was there, because we were pulled away very quick. I think my main point is that I do believe there was some kind of protocol to deal with this. And in the military, this kind of a scenario, and I think it was used that night just by observation. We were pulled away, went back to the base, had guys on the day flight making fun of us, went back to my room. The first thing I wanted to do that day was call my mother. And my mother is alive and well, and would tell you to this day. He called me. I was with Greg Batram, who lives in St. Louis, Missouri. God bless him. I hope he's well. And who went through these events too, saw me going out there. He was leaving as we were going in. And I called her up, and I said, you won't believe what happened to us last night.
She had a witness with her.
Huh?
And she had a witness with her.
Oh, yeah, a friend of hers that lives in Kentucky now. But, I mean, they're older ladies now, but, I mean, it went down. I mean, my family isn't going to lie for me. And I said to my mother, look, a UFO landed near the base. We saw it. And I wasn't there anymore. And immediately we have a thing called ComSec, and the British phone system's kind of antiquated at that time. And I was tracked doing this, all calls in and out of the base. Very naive on my part. Went to eat breakfast. I sat near Sergeant Peniston, who was, as I know now, was off duty because of his event 2 nights previous. Steve Longiero, a guy from Milpitas, California. These are real names, real people, real towns. Seek them out. And started talking to me and said, what the hell did we go through? And Sergeant Peniston said, Warren, shut the F up. And he confirms that. And it just got worse from there, my friend. And the event with the spooks started later that evening. And I was with Sergeant Bustinza when we were taken in this car. We were hit with aerosols. We went through a debriefing, and it was in Malcolm Ziegler's office. He has verified that. We were shown a film. That's been verified. I mean, what more do people want other than they get little snippets here and there, and you get certain researchers that specialize in Roswell and whatever the heck they do, and then attack everyone else that's ever done the real work on it and throw their stones, and they get mad because they're not credited in your book. I've never met such morons in my life through this work, but I've met some of the greatest people I ever know. And I stand by what I say, and I think most of it has been verified. And it's helped me deal with, kind of accept certain things. I mean, I didn't like, yay, flying saucers and aliens. I don't know what this was. But it definitely caused hell on earth with the military and British civilians and the British government. There's no question. And I'm sure Mr. Carter's government in transition to Ronald Reagan's. I'll shut up now.
Oh, no, you're right now, Larry. You're doing fine, man. I understand being passionate about this. I've been doing this myself.
Well, I'm beyond passionate, my brother. You know, the thing is, it's, and Peter knows, I mean, how do I, I'm a pretty plain-spoken guy, but, the best audience I think we ever had with anything, or when you're talking to people about this, or people who've read our book, or people outside the UFO field, because they're not tainted by it or anything, and they're not wigged out or whatever. You have to live through this stuff. I mean, just have to live through it. And then you have to see that things, you think you're raised one way to think things are a certain way, and they're not, because a guy was allowed to commit suicide who tried to go AWOL. This is the government he's serving allowed him to do it. I was in the military because I love my country. I still do. I believe in it. I believe in our right to stand up and protest. I live in a country where freedom of speech is not a right, okay? It is not an open, booked right. But, I'm not going to get into the politics of things, but anyone who wants to knock it, live abroad for a while and see how well-liked Yankees are nowadays. It's not a nice time. But I love my country. I just think it can be better with truth, and I think this is one subject that can change a lot of things. Might scare a lot of the radicals and lunatics out in the world, but maybe we can build an island and they would all make a big car bomb and get rid of themselves. I'd be very happy with that. But I'll shut up again. I'm going to have Al-Qaeda after me or something.
Hey, look, you ever there in the UK, they might blow you up over there. That's what they're doing. They blow up a bus station. We take a country. I'm not sure how that works, but still.
Yeah, I get angry, with the whole thing, because I love veterans. I'm a veteran, and I just don't like people crapping from a great height on their heads. They're over there doing a job, and we were doing a job, and we went through a thing that by no means it compares to being in combat or warfare or anything like that, but it was a whole different level of weirdness and craziness, and you have unchecked intelligence community sources that have unappropriated budgets from Congress. They don't even talk to Congress, and they're operating the show. I think this is private industry doing half this stuff. We had aircraft landing on that base to investigate this stuff that even the base commanders couldn't go near or approach and ask why they were there. This isn't me saying it. These are coming from Charles Halt and all the witnesses. It's fantastic. The truth of this thing, the best documentary, the best kind of forum with Rendlesham or Bentwaters is yet to come. I've always said the story will take me out of this thing, and it will still be there. It will never go away. This is the one. This is the one you take to court and win.
Well, Joe's had a chance to really read the book, and he certainly appreciates our situation, your situation. The fact of the matter is that, everything that Larry is saying, I spent almost 10 years of my life investigating, corroborating, backing up, and we're stuck with it, whether we like it or not.
We don't like it. We don't like it at all.
It's bad. Not a lot.
It's frustrating. It is true. Taxi drivers here, in my job I work, I'm a regular working stiff like anyone else. And I have people, that recognize you from these, when you're occasionally on a TV thing or the books or whatever, are you this guy? And they go, well, they see the job I'm in, they go, well, that's proof you were never in it for the money. So, you just, and they're like, well, man, that book did, maybe really think and all. And I guess that's all it's about, Goodwill. People thinking of the bigger picture.
I try to play it.
I'm no great sage or anything, for God's sake. Ask Peter. He'll prove it.
But you can't make any money in ufology. It's not. I try to explain that to people. People tell me all the time, well, you're in this for money. I said, no, it costs me money every year, so I'm not making any.
Oh, we weren't in it for money, Joe. We were in it for the women.
Yeah. Well, I don't...
didn't work out too well either. So.
No, not really, no.
No. No. Well, I think Peter would agree. I'll tell you, I've had people say, would you do 2 marriages down the toilet? I have a son that means more to me than, I'm an older father with 5, my Dennis, and I'll tell you what, this guy's a lookout world. But he's my pride and joy for sure, and changed my world. Pete's Uncle Peter, for God's sake. And the thing is, I look at their generation, and what's he going to think of all this? And I'd like him to take a different path. But I always, I've had people say, what do you think your kid would think of this role you're known for UFOs? Do you think he gets thick in school and all? I said I would think my son would be pretty damn proud of his old man and stand by his beliefs. And even as adverse as doing that on any issue, for that matter, can be. It's just, it wasn't hard work to do it because it happened. It wasn't like I didn't need a good memory, because you don't need a good memory when you're telling the truth. My perception could be weird on certain things and skewed, but that's the way it is. It's part of my life. It happened. I can't change it. It will always be my life to the end. And I just hope something good comes out of it. Like folks that do the shows you're doing, the people that call in, the people that listen to them, that keep an open mind and look and keep asking questions.
Yeah, well, let me go take a...
That's all it's about, really, on a million issues, not just UFOs. It's whatever this phenomenon is. I do believe it's the key to where we're going, whether good or bad.
Hey, I'm sorry, man. We got to take a break. Ladies and gentlemen, I want everyone to please stay tuned to Wake Up USA, a UFO study, a Stardust Radio production, now being broadcasted live on SRN 1690, Riverside, Iowa. I'm your host, Joe Montaldo. I'm speaking with Larry Warren and Peter. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. My brain is going dead. Anyway, we'll see y'all in a few minutes, so please stay tuned.
The following is a special alert for all former U.S. military personnel and their families. Our veterans are facing dramatic increases in health care costs and service reduction. Both the DoD and DVA are attempting to redefine and reduce benefits and services. Retired military families are targeted for huge cost increases in TRICARE coverage. VA services and facilities across the country are facing severe cutbacks, even closure. Our veterans are under attack. On April 25th, Operation Firing for Effect will hold a rally on the west lawn of the U.S. Capitol. If you oppose balancing the federal budget on the backs of our veterans, come and stand with us. Visit vetmarch2006.net.
This internet station sounds great on your computer, but wouldn't it be even better if you could take it with you wherever you go? Now you can. This station is proud to be affiliated with the Mobile Broadcast Network, brought to you exclusively by XS Voice. They make it possible for you to hear your favorite internet station anytime, anywhere, on your cell phone. To get connected, go to www.mymbn.com and listen to Internet Radio on the go.
Have you always wanted to know the truth about things like UFOs, underground bases, Area 51, the Great Pyramid at Giza, and the Roswell incident of 1947? If so, look no further than Dennis Ballfazer's cutting-edge research. There's no woo-woo factor here, folks, just the facts as he researched them. Dennis's lectures are available on video and audio cassette. For more information and free access to Dennis's research, visit his website, www.truthseeker@roswell.com. That's truthseeker@roswell.com. The truth is here.
Climate change could affect our way of life. Reduce your greenhouse gas emissions and help control climate change. Visit www.vcr-mvr.ca. Brought to you by the Voluntary Challenge and Registry, Climate Change Central, and this radio station.
I'm William Shatner, and this is Jimmy. Animals like Jimmy are often left behind by people fleeing hurricanes, fires, floods, and earthquakes. These abandoned animals cannot survive on their own. If you must evacuate your home, please never leave an animal behind. If you absolutely cannot take your animal with you, never leave him helplessly chained or caged. Many animals die because they cannot escape fires or rising waters. Animals need your help. Thank you.
Call PETA today, 757-622-PETA.
SRN 1690 AM, Riverside, Iowa, and around the world on the Stardust Radio Network. www.stardustradio.com.
You're listening to the Stardust Radio Network, where talent and technology meet.
evening, and welcome back to Wake Up USA, a UFO study, a Stardust Radio production. Now being broadcasted live on SRN 1690, Riverside, Iowa. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Joe Montaldo, sitting and speaking with Larry Warren and Peter Robbins. Apparently I can speak again now, so I'm not sure what happened. We're going to go straight into some questions, because I know I've been hogging up all Larry and Peter's time. So who we got up first? Let's see, we got EVAC 747 up. So EVAC, why don't you come up, give us your first name and location, and you're live and on the air with Peter and Larry.
How you doing tonight? Name's Jim. I'm in New Jersey. What I wanted to say was, my wife and I were in Florida, and I have a military background, Special Forces, 2 years in Vietnam, a year in Korea. And I'd gone to Florida and joined the Florida Marine Police. And every once in a while, the Everglades Rangers would request a few bodies to patrol the Everglades. So 3 of us were in separate airboats. And we were patrolling, and I saw something out in the distance, didn't know what it is, and I called into control, and I said, does the Air Force have anything out in the Everglades in our patrol area tonight? And they came back and they said, no, but it's on radar, and they are sending jets to investigate. Well, in the meantime, I moved in a little closer and contacted the other 2 patrol boats, and I asked them, I said, you guys see what I'm looking at 2 o'clock? And they came back, well, yes, we do. It looks like a Goodyear blimp. I said, do you see the word Goodyear blimp anywhere? There's no gondola, no engines underneath of it, nothing. It's sitting about 100 feet above us. So I said, listen up. We have red and blue lights behind us, right behind our props. So why don't we just shut down and just watch this thing until the jets get here? So we shut down the engines because we got these red and blue flashing lights behind our heads. We watched it for about 15 minutes. And then all of a sudden, all these lights come on out of nowhere. Reds, blues, greens, all kinds of things. But it looked like a blimp, but it wasn't. And when the Air Force jets arrived, this thing was gone in a heartbeat. Now, this is the first time I've ever discussed this with anyone. I never discussed it with my wife or anyone else. But when we got in off patrol the next morning, the Air Force was waiting for us at control. They wanted to know exactly what we had witnessed. And then they told us, well, you can't talk about this. It's going to be under classification. So for all these years, I've never opened my mouth about it. This is the first time I've ever discussed it. I know Lady ZB, she knows me, and this is the first time I've even thought about discussing it. But whatever was out in those Everglades wasn't from Earth.
Thanks for your service, too, my brother.
And it wasn't one of ours.
You're a hero.
Because as soon as the jets got there,
yourselves are starting to tell these things, and boy, the people need to hear it, and just the fact you've done it is it's a big step. I thank you, really.
Yeah, and as shattering as this is in your life and any of the men that were with you when it happened, it is almost more shocking how often Larry and I have heard similarly compelling accounts from as righteous people as you with absolutely gilt-edged military backgrounds. It is going on, it's happening, and many of the witnesses are among the most credible people imaginable.
You know what? It is amazing. I'll tell you what, too, back while I'm thinking about this, you need to go to www.ical1.com, file a report, let one of our investigators get in touch with you, talk it, we can get it all documented up. You know, this actually helps what Peter and Larry are talking about tonight. Any cases with the military where we have people involved with the military that we can check, it's a big plus, man. It just leads credence to more and more people that are coming forward. You know, which we need. We need more and more and more. Look, people, I know y'all can hear me out there. I know a lot of people from the military listen to this radio show because I do read my emails. And guys, you know, I came forward. Larry came forward. A lot of people coming forward. You guys just came forward on national radio. Come on, guys. Pick up the phone, you know, come in one of the virtual chat rooms, but come in and tell us about it. You know, it's very strange when people come in on the show like that and tell accounts. It always kind of freaks me out a little bit, but
That's a hero, man. And, you know, any listeners that are ex-military or anything, is they can check into the disclosureproject.org from back in 2001, where 20 military, some base commanders, etc., former head of the FAA division chief from Eastern USA, we stood up. I was there. I was a little mouse compared to the credentials on these people. And they went forward. And, of course, we did this at the NPC in Washington, D.C. We had major press from around the world. It was the best attended by press conference, even with an acting president in there, like Reagan. There was more press. They didn't leave after 4 hours. There wasn't a dang thing on the news that night about it, as usual. And it was historic. I was honored to be part of it. But what these folks can find, if they're ex-military or current or law enforcement, is that there are law enforcement sites now for ex-law enforcement that can report these cases. There are military sites like Disclosure where people are feeling free to come forward or at least share their accounts, be put in touch with other witnesses that went through it with them. And they're not alone. And that fellow Jim, he's a veteran, of course. He's a hero anyway, but he's even more one. Thanks.
Well, I'm always grateful when people are coming forward. It's a big Greg, who's been patiently waiting. So, dear, I see you get your hand up. Why don't you come up, give us your first name and location, and you're live in the air with Larry and Peter.
Thank you, Joe. This is directed towards, I better tell who I am first. This is Dee. I'm the Southwest Regional Director for ICAR. This question is combined for Larry and Peter. Most everybody is familiar with the case that happened in December of 1980. But what I'd like to hear a little more about is the sightings that both of you had while on your first trip together back to the Rendlesham Forest area. And I'd like to hear a little bit more about that and also a little bit more about the history of sightings of the area. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, boy, you take that one, Pete, because he didn't talk to me for like a year after that.
That upset me very much. Dee, I hope you're doing well, and please send our best wishes to David as well. As you know, for me, the last thing I expected in going back to England and investigating this subject, especially so early on Larry's and my first of probably 15 trips each since that time, in February of 1988. We had, for anyone who hasn't read the book, an ongoing multiple UFO incident that involved several dozen different machines or appearances or whatever you want to call them that ran, they were still happening an hour and a half after we started watching them, but we had arrived in that part of England just the day. That day, we had arrived in England the day before. We were tired, and Larry suggested on that first night on location that we take a walk, go out to the base where we could go on to the civilian area. It was very compelling, very exciting for me, also kind of romantic in that, it was nice that Larry reminded me it was a night very much like his original incident in 1980, which thrilled me no end. And on the way out there, he said something to the effect of, "You're going to see it while we're here." We had planned to be there for a week, and we were. And I said, "What do you mean, see what?" And he said, "UFOs, they're here. You're going to see them." And I thought he was just exaggerating. About half an hour later, the first one zoomed over. We made a nervous joke about it being a weather satellite, and in fact, it stopped, it pulsated, changed color, and it took off, and I cannot play that tape in mixed company. After getting quite a walk around the base, and Larry chatting up a security police officer who was essentially in his same position, but years later, and confirmed how seriously, without any prompting, this story was taken. We started to head back to the bed and breakfast we were staying at. It was very dark. There was no real ambient light to speak of. The base was receding in the back, and at about 9:30 exactly, I noticed a elliptical shape over the forest and pointed it out to Larry. Gave him a recorder. We both had a microcassette recorder in our hands, and for the next hour and a half, we did our best to just report what we were seeing. The transcript of that incident is carefully reproduced in the book. And several years ago, I was contacted by two gentlemen who did voice stress analysis. Had never done it in connection with the UFO-related incident, but I loaned them our first-generation audio tapes, and they came up smelling like roses. The stress in our voices apparently is measurable and is real. And you could have been trained as an actor by Lee Strasberg himself, and you couldn't make that happen with voice stress analysis.
I think we ate packs of cigarettes, if I recall.
Yeah, it was a big night for the tobacco industry, no question.
Between us.
I'll wait through this, baby.
That thing happened, and that, when after that, I think Peter and I began our we didn't know where the book was going to go, so long ago now, but
I was so shocked. I had no...
It really was a bad thing, because, the poor guy has come into this. How I knew we were going to see UFOs, they were. It was the craziest damn thing, and just off the south end of the Bentwaters flight line in the forest. It just shouldn't have happened, but it did. And I wish we had had a video camera, I guess, but then people who would believe that either, right?
Yeah.
But it happened, and the problem we had, remember, we kind of fell out over this for a long time because it was fried Peter.
I was on overload at that point. I really thought this was going to be a little more academic, and that I'd be doing some nice research and looking at articles and not having disc-shaped things flying over my head in a very scary little corner of England. I'm half joking here, but I've had people say to me, and Dee again directing this question to you, what an amazing break for an investigative researcher in our field. You're with a key witness to a seminal UFO incident. You go back to the location, your very first night, on your very first trip, and now I couldn't tell you how many times I've been back to that area. You've got this amazing multiple UFO incident. Well, think again. Larry was, at the time, hardly uncontroversial, and the fact is that this was the first night of my first visit, and Larry cut me a lot of latitude on this. He made it clear that if I decided, not to include it, that would be all right with him. One thing we were really sure about was you couldn't just make a passing reference to it. Oh, yeah, by the way, on our very first night back on location, we saw 30 UFOs. And, boy, breakfast was sure good the next morning. You can't do that. And so I spent almost a year listening to those tapes, every syllable, every partial syllable, because I knew we were going to get hit. But it was wild. It went from things as small as stars zipping around in the sky to things that were decidedly elliptical, dropping down in the woods, lighting up the woods, no sound on anything. And then ultimately a thing with what looked like three discernible windows set in a metallic curved structure that appeared in the field we were in, X number of yards ahead of us, which was terribly upsetting to me. And at that point, Larry just started walking toward it, saying words to the effect of, "Why don't you leave me alone? Why? What are you doing? Why always get..." And I can't say half of the things he said. And at that point, I literally put my hand on his shoulders. He was walking toward it, cursing it, and said something like, "Think about what you're doing," thinking to myself that I don't know at that point whether I was more concerned about being picked up by Air Force security, being so close to a secured NATO base, maybe watching some kind of classified thing going on, or ending up on Mars for dinner. So I was freaking, no question about it, and we did back away at that point and just continued to watch it, and it went on and on. And again, anybody that wants to get a piece of it, it runs about 19 pages or so in the revised edition of the book. People must really just, think, what were these guys smoking back then? Or throughout the thing. We laugh a lot. There's a lot of humor. We're both from New York, and it's kind of a coping mechanism. Even on 9/11, I think this kind of this weird
gallows humor. And I'll tell you that as real as that was, and as bizarre as that was, it was the last thing we needed. But I look back now, I literally was just on the floor on my knees when he said the trip to Mars, because he said it that night when it was happening. He goes, literally, I remember you grabbed me saying like this, I don't really feel like a trip to Mars tonight. Because,
seems to be nervous humor, but yes,
whatever it was, this stuff was right there around us, and it was right near this place where all this had happened. And what it said to me is there a possibility that these things do have some kind of a base there, for God's sake? You wonder, what's the truth? Where does it end? What did the spooks say that was true? What did they say that wasn't? What was meddled with? What wasn't? Maybe we weren't meddled with at all. God knows. If it's the latter, then we're really in. And
I should also reiterate that this experience that we're talking about, which happened, February 18th, 1988, I'm sure, I'm just guessing here, was only 5.5 or 6 miles from the site of Larry's third night incident. So we're still right in the Bermuda Triangle here. It's not like it's on the other side of the country or anything.
Yeah, that happened, though, so it's humorous and bizarre and just still kind of, I still think of that and you try to put it in perspective, but that was too much perspective.
Yeah, right. But thank you for your question, Dee.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, I'll tell you what, we got about 10 minutes to break. Let's see, we can get one more question before the break. See, TRMT 137 has been patiently waiting with her hand up. Oh, I don't know if we should have made this one wait, y'all. TRMT, why don't you come up and give us your first name and location, and you're live in there with Peter and Larry.
Fascinating accounts and programs, gentlemen. Treats from Massachusetts. Sir, your website notes that the U.S. base commander verified certain aspects of these sightings. Regarding these events, do you know of particular staff debriefings or later information indicating that senior base personnel anticipated these alien craft sightings? Also, this evening's comments have noted strategic concerns. From these debriefings or later research, was there any indication of a link between certain alien groups and a particular NATO alliance focus, such as military or civil security, scientific or environmental areas? Thank you for your responses, gentlemen.
Thank you. There were indeed briefings after those events. Thanks for the call. And with senior people, I wasn't privy to any of the senior level briefings. We were debriefed according to rank, and it was very informal. Well, not informal, but it wasn't a structured kind of thing. It was thrown together quite quick because they had to contain this thing. As far as I think you might be referring, was there a and that can be researched by just about anyone. There's plenty of these senior folks involved that now can, hopefully one day, their pensions won't get in the way and they can speak freely about that level of the game. As far as, I've always felt there was a pre-designed kind of a protocol to deal with an event, if such an event were to happen, close in contact with something else, someone else. I won't say alien, it was alien to us, that there would be some sort of procedure, or these were just standard nuclear containment procedures with this alleged life form present that they had to deal with. But I only had about 10, 15 minutes of on-site seeing that level of the game. Pete, you want to try some of that one?
Yeah, your question about whether or not any parallels can be drawn between the non-standard and paranormal activities that went on in that 3-night period in late December 1980 and a particular service branch or intelligence focus or, area in civilian sector, I have not seen evidence to that effect, but it takes a lot for me to concede a point. I'm a very dogged and kind of pragmatic researcher, and I will always look for the mundane before I move on to the extraordinary. there may well be, but I have never seen anything that makes me feel that what Larry experienced after the fact was anything but human. Although it may well, I mean, there's no question in my mind that they wanted him and very likely other men to feel that it was a non-human presence that was communicating with them after the fact of their involvement in the incident. Again, for me, maybe it is. I think that for all of us here, we sometimes choose to believe what we can tolerate believing, or what we want to believe, or what fits into our own subtle or overt agendas, or what we're trying to put forward at this point, this many years in. I almost don't even care anymore whether we're dealing with something from another planet, another time, another dimension. It may well be aspects of all of them, and likely is. But I don't see any parallel between, say, Alpha Centaurians and the National Security Agency here. I think that we're dealing with extremely secretive terrestrial forces and non-human intelligences that come and go with impunity for reasons best known to themselves, that we can just make our best educated guesses at why they're here and why they're moving to contact us or not contact us or interface with us, as in this situation, in the way that they do. And again, it's still all guesswork.
Yeah, and I would like to say just one thing for the record. I have never said in 25 years that the base commander was communicating with aliens. I have never said that, though I'm quoted as having said that forever, even on television. Never have said it, ever.
Well, that's ever. Bonkers at work, that's all,
And it's ridiculous. There was just something there, and it just wasn't right. But I have good questions,
That's how the debunkers work, though, Larry. If they can't debunk you face out, then they're just going to make stuff up. And unfortunately for us who work in the field, a lot of people believe the BS. Instead of checking it out for themselves, they just buy it and they go on to the next thing.
Right on. They're bypassing people's pain, really, and I'm not talking about me, but I mean, this thing cost lives, and that's never been disputed by my base commander or anything, because I do believe, to a degree, the senior people involved on that base were responsible, and that's a bit of the drive I have with it, certainly, and in 1982, I can assure you, it was not a popular subject to come out of the woodwork and say, and had the Hulk document never come out, based on information I supplied, by the way, I would have, just said, enough of this. I was quite skeptical anything would ever have come out back then. But I've never said there was communication with aliens, used the word aliens, anything like that, ever. That's other authors. There's one particular over here that I try to commit suicide so much that I should be reincarnated 20 times. It's never happened. I had a rough point in my life. It was a little weird issue many years ago. But you hear this like you've committed suicide a million times. What the hell is that? And they can get away with that? And then they offer to buy you drinks when you see them. You get a thick skin with this stuff, but I'll tell you, some people get away with murder. And usually when you run into them, they're absolute cowards. Absolute cowards. But it's never easy. The good people in this stuff outweigh the bad. And that's why I've always been wanting to protect the folks that, like that first caller, the military man that had that thing in Florida. They come into a lion's den with some of these people. And go forward, like Peter has always said, with caution in this stuff. It's not so much, the media are morons in general. They play games with all this. But half the time there are people that purport to be researchers and the whole bag, you know what I'm talking about, and they're just out for their own profile, their own thing, and half the time they come and go. They vaporize real quick and they're gone. Pete and I have been around a long time. I think that you fella doing the show, you're going to be around a long time, but people, before you go forward, be very cautious and be a good judge of character, because there's a lot of characters in this work that need kicking. So,
a bunch of them out there just trying to. Well, that's another thing I always love, when you speak, because I've been doing this myself for about 23 years. And
long time, my man.
We only really got into the public eye in the last 5 or 6 years, because I do a lot of public speaking these days, but I really don't like it. I got to be honest with you. I just do it because I have a need. I just have a need that just needs to be talked about. It's some kind of drive that people say, well, he's a walking. I'm not a walking. I'm the same person I've always been. It's just now I got a real big mouth. That's all. I used to be real quiet. Now I have a real big mouth.
And now you're in the right place. Radio.
All right. Let me go to break right quick. I want you to please stay tuned to Wake Up USA, a UFO study, a Stardust Radio production, now being broadcasted live on SRN 1690, Riverside, Iowa. I'm your host, Joe Montaldo. I'm sitting and speaking with Larry Warren and Peter Robbins, and as soon as we return, we'll start taking some more questions, so please stay tuned.
The following is a special alert for all former U.S. military personnel and their families. Our veterans are facing dramatic increases in health care costs and service reduction. Both the DoD and DVA are attempting to redefine and reduce benefits and services. Retired military families are targeted for huge cost increases in TRICARE coverage. VA services and facilities across the country are facing severe cutbacks, even closure. Our veterans are under attack. On April 25th, Operation Firing for Effect will hold a rally on the west lawn of the U.S. Capitol. If you oppose balancing the federal budget on the backs of our veterans, come and stand with us. Visit vetmarch2006.net.
Captain's log. According to reports from the Minnesota DNR, we are waist deep in a lake infested with
Captain, the ship is surrounded by exotic species known as Eurasian water milfoil, zebra mussels, and spiny water flea.
Doctor, what's affecting our Vulcan friend?
Jim, it appears the Vulcan's vocal cords are clogged with zebra mussels.
Engineering, beam them up.
Oh, sir, I've got no power. The milfoil's infested with lithium crystals.
The spiny water flea are doing chorus line with the photon torpedoes, and the zebra mussels help block out the warp drive. Bones, is there anything that can be done about these exotic species before they spread to other lakes?
Jim, it's as plain as the nose on your face. Just clean or dry out your boat and drain your bait bucket before sinking into another lake. If you see things hanging from your boat or motor, pull them off. If you don't, it's a hefty fine from the DNR. Remember, clean boats mean clean waters.
Have you always wanted to know the truth about things like UFOs, underground bases, Area 51, the Great Pyramid at Giza, and the Roswell incident of 1947? If so, look no further than Dennis Ballfazer's cutting-edge research. There's no woo-woo factor here, folks, just the facts as he researched them. Dennis's lectures are available on video and audio cassette. For more information and free access to Dennis's research, visit his website, www.truthseeker@roswell.com. That's truthseeker@roswell.com. The truth is here.
Climate change could affect our way of life. Reduce your greenhouse gas emissions and help control climate change. Visit www.vcr-mvr.ca. Brought to you by the Voluntary Challenge and Registry, Climate Change Central, and this radio station.
SRN 1690 AM, Riverside, Iowa, and around the world on the Stardust Radio Network. www.stardustradio.com.
You're listening to the Stardust Radio Network, where talent and technology meet.
Good evening, and welcome back to Wake Up USA, a UFO study, a Stardust Radio production. Now being broadcasted live at SRN 1690, Riverside, Iowa. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm your host, Joe Montaldo. I'm sitting and speaking with Larry Warren and Peter Robbins. You know, Larry, when we were at the first break, we kind of touched on the Dr. Greer and C. SETI project. And I really wanted to know your opinion about it, because I've been doing I've been doing a report. Every time I see any ufologists lately, I've been asking them at the X conference, Laughlin, we've just been going through, it's basically a little expose. We're trying to get about 50, 60 people in the field or experiences to give us their opinion on Dr. Greer and on C. SETI. I'm getting very, very mixed reviews.
Go ahead. If I can speak freely, all I can say about Stephen Greer was Peter and I've done a few conferences, maybe when I've lived in Europe now for 6 years, and England, and so all I knew of him, very strong personality. He was an ER emergency room doctor, so I have respect for that. very strong personality, and I'm being politically correct on that. I don't know much about what the SETI folks did. It was something with the beams of light and all that. I kind of never was involved around that or had experience with it, so I'm not sure what they were doing. But I will say one thing about Stephen Greer is that when he came over to Leeds for a major conference here, and I think Peter we spoke at that, I think, right, pal? And that was in 2000. And my son hadn't been born, so it was 2000. And Steve Greer asked me to be part of this disclosure conference he was trying to put together in Washington, D.C. the next year. And that came about in May. He called me up. He interviewed me as part of the military testimony, and I was happy to do it. And he flew me over. In fact, I think my son had just been born. And I flew to Washington in May of 2001. And it was ominous times, was it not? You know, and I was pretty hyped up about it. It was all expenses as far as expenditures, airfare. They covered it. Disclosure Project, not SETI. As far as I knew, they were not part of that. There might have been some folks in it. There was the actor John Cipher, who was one of the coordinators. He was on Hill Street Blues and all that. Great guy. And the most impressive thing what Greer did, his strong personality came through quite often. But I think it took someone like that. I guess ego, maybe, a strong ego. But from what I saw him coordinate, and Steve Bassett was part of it as well, was he pulled together a really first-rate thing that most people don't know about, which is a tragedy, really. We spent a week, I had the best civics lesson in my life. We lobbied congressmen and senators, different groups. I was in the Air Force group with Dwayne Arneson and a lot of guys that were base commanders, actually nuclear base commanders that wanted to stand up, like our caller earlier. I think it was John from New Jersey, and lend their testimony to the record. And they actually did it in public at the National Press Club. And again, I'm an old hand at this. Many of them had read our book. They said it kind of inspired me to go forward and all this, and I felt a little guilty about it, but I got up, did my piece. I'm Joe Blow. This happened to me. We need congressional hearings, open hearings on this phenomenon. Shut up, sat down, but I was a Twinkie compared to the credentials these people had that he put together, and I found them all very, very credible. Except one poor guy, I think, had a lot of tragedy in his life and was maybe having some trouble there, but God bless him. He had some issues. He lost his son. So I saw him put that together, and I saw it the best press attendance at the National Press Club in its history. That's a fact. I saw that the live uplink on the web were 500,000. Wait, I could have that wrong. 1 million people were waiting to watch. The thing began at 9. The web link was knocked down, and it was artificially shut down in the D.C. area and jammed. And that came from the people that sponsored it, which were affiliated with CNN. It was intentionally jammed. All the 400-plus media, you never saw a thing except one thing on upstate New York TV where they said all these crazy people were claiming they saw aliens again in D.C., again, base commanders, super secret classifications. One guy was the head of the FAA Eastern Division. He could call up senators and they'd say, oh, come out of the office and all that. I talked to McCain. I talked to lots of folks. I got one of the press kits right to George Bush's foreign advisor right at the White House gate, who George was new at that time. And it was an amazing time, and we had standing ovation from the world's press. You didn't see a dang thing that night, and all I saw on certain websites, like out of Canada, called UFO Updates, was people slagging the thing off that didn't participate and have done nothing but throw mud at people for years, and I hope they just remain on their little website there, because they contribute nothing. So I think one thing Greer did, and I'll say this in his favor, and someone knocked him over here once, and my ex-wife, Sue, is a Liverpool Scouser, and they do speak their mind. She said at least he did something. And so the guy bloody well did something, and he pulled off an amazing thing. I came back with very high hopes. Saw a UFO in D.C. that one of those days. It flew under Marine One, which was the president's helicopter coming back from Camp David, broad daylight. I was with numerous other witnesses right in the middle of central Washington, D.C. at the D.C. Hilton. So tell me it doesn't happen. We all saw it. We said, oh, crap, and just went back to smoking. Should we tell anyone? Nah. It was an amazing time. And so I give...
All right, we got, let's see, we got Dave on the line from Arizona.
He pulled it together, so I was on it.
Yeah, Dave, what you got for us?
Can you guys hear me all right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Hi.
Hey, Peter and Larry, thank you for being on the show. My name's David. I'm talking to you from Arizona. I'm the Arizona State Director for ICAR. And first, gentlemen, let me say I'm about halfway through Left at Eastgate, and this book is just amazing. The story is riveting, and I thank you both for your efforts, especially you, Larry, for coming forward with the story. My question mainly is pointed at Larry, but Peter, if it applies to you as well, please answer. Larry, I know in the book you allude to having more than likely contact experiences after the event occurred. I was just curious, have either of you had any contact experiences after the initial publishing of the book? And if so, do you know when the last one was? Thank you.
I'll take
Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. And say no, I have not. I have not. That one in February of 1988 was more than enough for me to cover X number of period of time, but no. Although, Larry, I'm remembering now one that involved you that you phoned me on, and I spoke to the other party who kind of got pulled into this. But, yeah, no, none for me.
I've had too many, Dave, and but I mean, since the book I've had sightings, things, and I live on the River Mersey, pretty much in South Liverpool, and there's sightings down here all the time, and it seems like there's a window area in this area of northwest England, and sightings happen quite frequently. You see some very strange things. They're photograph filmed quite often. As far as contact with some, like goes into in the book, nothing that way, but I've always had kind of strange, predisposed to paranormal and strange experiences, psychic things. I mean, the other day we had the Grand National, which is the famous race. Remember the Liz Taylor movie and all that? And I think that was before her 15th marriage, but that takes place in Aintree, which is here in Liverpool, and it's kind of cruel, I think, to the horses. But regardless, the Grand National, what was I going to say? Oh, heck with me. I don't know. Liz Taylor threw me. But it's a major sighting area. And my son, basically, I was going to say, does it skip generations? Is my son said, that guy in the green's going to win. And the guy in the green did win the damn thing. I should have threw some pounds on it. So maybe it does jump generations. He hasn't talked about little friends yet, though. But he's an open-minded kid. He'll be fine. It does happen. I've had it in my life. I'd like to know more, but just not tonight. I'm tired.
I hear that. I can understand that. And when it comes to kids, I don't know. Eventually, I think if it's in the family line, it's in the family line. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, I was adopted, so in the book there's a thing where my mother and I had a couple sightings in the 70s, but there was no bloodline there, really. I mean, it's my family, so I know I was only 4 months old when I was adopted, but so, my son the blood's there, God help him, and, who knows? He has said some very intriguing things. I think I've told Pete about it. But a lot of this stuff, of course, stays in the families, and, some people probably put their kids into therapy or go into it themselves. Other people like us make fools of themselves on radio and or television and dance around on the stage and have beers with folks to excess afterward. But, hopefully we're all doing something good, and we're doing good for the silent majority. To know that they're not alone.
You know what? I'm glad y'all said that. Dr. Phil, just in case you're listening to the radio show, do me a favor and please stick to your regular nutcases and leave the contactees alone and let us deal with them. A friend of mine sends me this email the other day about the Dr. Phil show, and he's got a contactee on there just basically debunking her to hell and back. And I'm like, oh, no. See, now that done started a little war. Now I'm going to have to start a press campaign on him.
Doctor, he unfortunately, he's infected. He pops up over here in the United Kingdom, and he spouts off, and he cures people in a half hour. I was hoping Ozzy would hit him, though, on the Osbournes. I thought I don't think Ozzy knew exactly what he was talking about. And I'd rather get my psychiatric advice from Ozzy Osbourne than this Philip person. So that's un-American, but I don't like Oprah either. She never featured her book.
I'll tell you what, I was ticked when I heard about it, and that's just one of the things I'm going to deal with. But let me see, we got a little time. Let's grab another question. I see Trees from Mass is back up. So, Trees, why don't you come up and ask Larry and Peter a question, and you're live and on the air.
I hope you can hear me. Trees again from Massachusetts. Mr. Warren, I just wanted to clarify that my reference to your website was that the text itself notes that the U.S. base commander has verified certain of the sighting aspects. I made no reference to any alleged communication of any base commander with any aliens. But now could I ask another question? Gentlemen, could you confirm that some of the Rendlesham sighting craft, per accounts attributed to Sergeant Jim Peniston, bore finely etched alien symbols, and have those symbols been found to significantly resemble any codification or symbols appearing elsewhere, either from alleged depictions of alien craft or from Earth's archaeological or linguistic sources? And also, would you confirm that these sightings consisted of both craft intelligently manipulated or maneuvered, and also those apparently being maneuvered by living entities themselves? Thank you.
Tough one. Who wants it?
Thanks. I just wanted to throw in the communication thing. I know you didn't say that, honey. I just wanted to throw that out there because other people do say that. It wasn't you. And the symbols Sergeant Peniston did, just real quick, were noted at the time. In my experience, I don't know if they've been correlated to other sightings or descriptions, but they're very intriguing, and they were indeed seen. I didn't see symbols on the object 2 nights later, which was much different and larger than what was seen in the forest on Jim Peniston's first night. But the symbols, there's something there. I'll tell you, there's something very familiar. And, of course, many of your listeners may not know that through some work Sergeant Peniston has done over the years, which is not featured on these interviews sometimes, is that he was communicated with himself by something within this object on that first night. He asked, "Who are you?" And it said, "We are you." And then it went on to say 500,000 years in the future and other things. But he'll have to, that's his business. I know that is fact, though, was said to him. And I think it makes him very uncomfortable. What did I miss on that good lady's question, Pete?
Didn't miss anything except that it's a question that in a perfect world should go to Mr. Peniston himself. Larry and I, we don't know what his experience was. We've seen recreations in, television documentaries, as well as have some sense behind the scenes that in earnest he did try to make notes on these forms that he was seeing. I can't call them letters. I can't call them hieroglyphics. They're some kind of form, but I don't know what to make of it, except that he seems absolutely sincere and as obsessed as anyone that has been involved in this case, and also seems to have a desire to get to the bottom of it. I just wish again that there were a forum where all of the men who had been involved, no matter how they feel, could sit down together in a safe space and begin to talk this thing through and compare notes. That would be of tremendous value to all of us.
And we don't have a website, by the way. Do we have I don't have a website, but no. I think there was one
now
at all. And but there is one for the book, but that was started by a company in New York.
Oh, yeah.
That's inactive for years. I'm not too sure what's on that anymore. Maybe the Hulk document. And so just so folks know, I don't have a website.
I'll tell you what, anytime y'all want to publish something, you get hold of myself or David. We have lots of websites, okay, guys?
Oh, yeah.
Post all over creation. We have very large ones with lots of people visiting them every day, and you look. We got whole sections dedicated to stuff like this that you can be posting on. So anytime you feel
Very good.
Just get in touch with me, and I'll have it posted on the site.
I appreciate that, man. Peter's the computer guy. He's always on it. I can't even work a cell phone now, so it's too Star Trek-ish for me. So, yeah.
A little communicator, man.
Thank you for that.
It comes in handy. Let's see, let's grab another quick question. Yeah, we got some time left. Let's see. Lee Spirit, I see you got your hand up. You've been patiently waiting, so why don't you come up and give us your first name and location, and you're live and on the air with Peter and Larry. Not hearing anything. Lee, it must be something wrong with your audio, buddy, because I didn't hear a thing. I seen your hand moving and I seen the mics moving, but I didn't hear a word. So sorry about that. If you want to put it in text, you can do that, and I'll refer it to him. Or in a few minutes, if you want to try to fix it, just put your hand back up and come back up. It's strange too. There's always going to be a little technological glitch somewhere. I'm not going to complain. As much technology as we're using right now, I'm not going to complain. When I reflect back on all of this. First off, it's nice that you had the courage to come forward, Larry, and talk about this. Because, I have a lot of people who come forward and tell me about their experience. But when I ask them, would you like to do a radio appearance or would you like to post the information to one, they're like, oh, wait, no, I want to do that now. Please, Joe, we don't want to go there. I'll tell you about it all day long, but I'm not telling anybody else.
Yeah, I think that's probably the majority, really.
It is.
It's probably the smart folks you talk to. This was by accident with me, but it was just, it's kind of my nature to be that way. I actively try to piss people off in as many countries as I can before I die, and I think France will be next after I'm done with England.
We're hitting what? I think we're going out to 72 tonight, so you'll have a chance to
No offense to France. Good.
See, Ian S.P.'s got his hand up. He's been patiently waiting. So, Ian, why don't you come up, give us your first name, and you're live and on air with Peter and Larry. Okay. I know we got John.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to say hello to Larry and welcome to England, in particular Liverpool. I'm not a Scouser, but I live in Liverpool. In your opinion, is Paddy's Wigwam a mothership?
Oh my God! You have to. Well, you know what? It's the Catholic mothership. Is that a Scouser on the phone?
Oh man, yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, it does look like the thing in Paddy's Wigwam, to your listeners. It's the Catholic Cathedral in Liverpool, and it looks like the top of the Close Encounters spaceship, because we have the Anglican Cathedral, which is a gigantic thing to see. It's not just the cavern here in Liverpool. There's amazing things to look at also, and I think it might be a mothership. I always think of that place because I went to the 9/11 commemorations there in Liverpool. It was a great deal of support right after it. That's a funny one, man. I'll tell you. I'll think of that now every time I look at it.
We've got John on the line from the Netherlands, so I know he's on his nickel, so let's get his question in here. John, what kind of question you have for Peter and Larry tonight?
Okay, thank you, Jojo. Larry Warren, it's a real honor to talk to you and to listen to you, because I saw you in a UFO documentary about the Renderson case, and I was very impressed how you present yourself. And I do about 16 years UFO research in the Netherlands, and I collect all over the globe documentaries, and I've seen your statements many times. And if you are looking for a web page, to put it online, I can do this for you, because I have 1,000 unique visitors a day, so I can arrange that for you if you want to. It's untoldmystery.com. But my question will be the symbols. I have seen also symbols when I had a UFO encounter, and my question is, those symbols have to do with the future, and if so, are there more people, connecting the dots about time travel? That's my question.
I love the Netherlands, and I lived a lifetime many years ago in the Air Force, as a young man in Amsterdam, and I won't go It's great to talk to you. Thanks for your thoughts, too, and invite me over to speak in your great country. It's right across the street here. But, and Peter, this was so much fun. But the thing is, with the future thing, it's something in my mind, isn't that funny, is that through Sergeant Peniston, because none of this phenomena told me anything, or where it was from, or any of that information, but this is based on things I think are pretty good sources that say that Sergeant Peniston, through regressive hypnosis, has recalled this thing, and I think he was quite disturbed by it from what I understood, that this voice spoke to him via telepathic means, must have been, whatever was in this object on the first night, and said, "We are you, 500,000 years in the future," and they were talking about doing biological and genetic research because things were going bad, as if they're not bad enough. But and there was something about that, because, anyone's seen Peniston on television, he's pretty much no-nonsense guy, and he always was back then also. He's a professional military guy, career guy. And, you hear someone like that talking like that and maybe getting into tears a little bit when they're reading and looking at the symbols and the notes they took on probably one of the better documentaries that Brian Gumbel did some years ago. That has to say something. And I am open to that possibility. Is it something from the future at Bentwaters? Maybe. We don't look the same then. But, great question. It's just one of those things. If I knew these answers, I'd be rich. But I'm rich in friends, so that's enough. Great question, though. I love the Netherlands. God bless you all over there.
I don't think I've ever heard Peter this quiet in the whole time I've known him. Damn, that's rough getting caught between me and you. Peter can't even get a word in. That's right.
He can kick my butt sometimes.
Yeah.
He can do it, believe me.
Y'all are both right. I know we're getting short on time. We've got, about 5 minutes left. Oh, quick, while I'm thinking about it, y'all, tell them again where to find the book, tell them about the book, where they can find it at.
You can go online to any book-related website, Barnes & Noble UK, Amazon US, any bookstore website, or order it from your local bookstore. The only thing you need to remember, because there is an earlier edition that doesn't have these updates, you're looking for Left at East Gate by Larry Warren and Peter Robbins, published by Cosimo, Cosimo, and they're based in New York City.
And they also publish it in England now, and for Europe you can get it as well over here. It's available again, and it's updated. There's new information in the front, new forward, and it's brought more up to date.
Which was done in great part because just this past December was the 25th anniversary. And you can guess where Larry and I were on the 25th anniversary.
Oh, I can imagine where y'all two were.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Doing a little reminiscing, huh?
No, we were in the forest again.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Back in the woods, by Eastgate, and of course, wouldn't you know, that was the one night it snowed, and snowed sideways that week.
Yeah. And it's a great kind of place. I can go back there now, and it's very peaceful. And just to kind of people ask questions, Pete was there on a tour with them. They have a tour. The Forestry Commission has tours, UFO trail, and everything. Yeah. They've done plays. Shakespearean Company did a major play in there called the UFO Incident. I was played by a male actor, I guess, but Charles Holt, I was happy to find out, was played by a female. I'm Justice after all. I don't know.
Charlene Holt.
Yeah.
Charlene Holt, okay.
It's nothing fun, Charles, but, you got to have some laughs, right? I mean, you live long enough, these things turn into plays, and it's crazy, it's amazing, but it's still worth hunting down, and there are people that have to be held to account with it, but the world, at the end of the disclosure thing, I thought we were on a roll and going, and then 9/11 came, and that changed everything. Did it not? I had family in that New York, and, what a great country we got, man. I'll tell you, we bounced back, forget all the politics abroad and all this stuff, but it's scary times for the world. And I think if people all over the damn place started to look into this stuff, very idealistic and naive, isn't it? we might start getting our heads together and looking at where we're at and where we're going.
Larry, thanks for coming on tonight because y'all were both great. We're just about out of time. But, man, Larry, you did a great job. I'm glad you came on. I'm glad you agreed to come on. I had a blast listening to you tonight. You got some good information. Peter, you're always good, even though we kind of kept you quiet tonight.
Oh, hey, my pleasure. And, yeah, it was fun being back on the air with Larry again. And I think if you twist our arms, you can get either one of us back for
anytime,
high-pressure negotiation.
Oh,
anytime.
Dad, I'll get y'all a copy of the archive. Guys, don't forget next week, Alfred Weber's going to be on the show. We're going to be discussing exopolitics. You know, one of these nights, I think I'm going to have to bring on Grant Cameron, Stephen Bissett, and Alfred, and we'll just have a nice roundtable discussion. But, guys, again, I want to tell y'all thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we're just about totally out of time. Remember, guys, you can always find us right here, okay? Wake Up USA, a UFO study, a Stardust Radio production, now being broadcasted live on SRN, 1690 Riverside, Iowa. If you have an abduction you'd like to report or a sighting, you can always reach us at www.icar1.com. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you all have a good evening and see you next week.
If you would like to continue this discussion after the show, join us in ICAR's Pal Talk chat room, UFO Alien Phenomenon, under the Social Issues category.
Captain's log. According to reports from the Minnesota DNR, we are waist deep in a lake infested with...
Captain, the ship is surrounded by exotic species known as Eurasian water milfoil, zebra mussels, and spiny water flea.
Doctor, what's affecting our Vulcan friend?
Jim, it appears the Vulcan's vocal cords are clogged with zebra mussels.
Engineering, beam them up.
Oh, sir, I've got no power. The milfoil's infested with lithium crystals. The spiny water flea are doing chorus line with the photon torpedoes. And the zebra mussels have blocked out the warp drive.
Bones, is there anything that can be done about these exotic species before they spread to other lakes?
Jim, it's as plain as the nose on your face. Just clean or dry out your boat and drain your bait bucket before sinking into another lake. If you see things hanging from your board or motor, pull them off. If you don't, it's a hefty fine from the DNR. Remember, clean boats mean clean waters.
SRN
1690 AM, Riverside, Iowa, and around the world on the Stardust Radio Network. www.stardustradio.com